Hey, everybody, welcome to Locker Room. This is Southland's podcast for men where we redeem men's conversations, talk about the right things in the right ways. My name is Scott Hatfield. Thanks for checking out the podcast. This podcast is all about creating a culture of strong, godly men that fight for the most important things as we seek generational change. And I want to say thanks for checking out the podcast. If you're a faithful listener, man, so glad that you're invested in this battle and what we're doing together. If you're brand new, thanks for checking out the podcast for the first time. Hope that this is really encouraging for you. Also want you to know that there's a bunch of previous episodes in this podcast. If you do a deep dive, a bunch of things in the feed that you should check out. Up top, I wanted to just give a shout out to the men at the Blackburn Correctional Facility. In December, I had the honor of going to speak for an incredible ministry called Prison Fellowship. A couple guys in our church, Chad Mangum and then Mangum. There you go. Mangum and Jordan Moody. I've never called him by his last name. Anyway, Mangum and Jordan Moody, who do worship at the Georgetown campus. I got to partner with them with Prison Fellowship to do a Hope event there at the correctional facility. Didn't know how many men were going to show up. There were about 311 men there at the Blackburn prison, and 300 of them came to this event. It was packed. It was awesome. The biggest Hope event that they put on here. It was incredible. We did some worship. A man from the prison got up and shared his story. Another guy from the prison got up and prayed, and it was a phenomenal prayer, and I got to get up and speak about the prodigal son. More importantly, the father in that story who just embraces this rebellious, broken son and invites him back into the family and throws this huge party because his son was lost and is now found. And I got to connect with the team there at Prison Fellowship, phenomenal team. When it was all over, we got to also speak personally to almost every single man. They were so kind. Many of them are already walking with Jesus, have very different lives. I never felt unsafe. It was such an honor to get to encourage them, give a bunch of hugs to a bunch of dudes, and pray for some guys that God loves and longs to redeem their stories. And I hope that they get an opportunity to listen to the podcast, check out our church online. And once they get out, man, I hope that they'll come and check out one of our 5 campuses where they will feel loved and valued and cared for. My prayer is that God will allow Southland to be a part of their story. We had several people from our church that are serving in Prison Fellowship, men and women. Even though that's a men's facility, there were women there serving, volunteering with Prison Fellowship that do Bible studies where they serve these men on Wednesday and Thursday nights. If you are interested, Locker Room, please reach out to me. Shoot me an email, lockerroom@southland.church. I would love to get you connected with them. It was phenomenal, and it was I left so full by spending time with those guys. So a couple things up top, and then I'll get to my awesome guest. We kicked off groups session at our church. A lot of different groups you can be a part of. The one I'm leading is in Danville. It's called Fight Club. I do it on Monday nights. It's a 15-week group focused on biblical manhood, helping guys to step into their role and fight the right battles. It meets on Monday nights from 7 to 9. All men from all of our campuses, high school age and up, are welcome. We'd love to have you. Sign up at southland.church/groups for that. If you haven't jumped in a group or you're looking to do so or you want to start a group, a Locker Room group is a great group to do that. One of the easiest groups to lead. Grab some guys, listen or watch the Locker Room podcast, get together, talk about the questions in the show notes. There's a lot of groups that meet. Check those out. If you're interested in doing something else, that's totally fine. Go to southland.church/groups. Check out what's in the directory. There's plenty of stuff for men and marriage and serving groups and divorce care. The key to our spiritual growth is in direct proportion to who we surround ourselves with. It's about community. So don't stay on the sidelines. Don't live on an island. Get into a group. One more thing, we also have a marriage workshop coming up. It's a 2-day event basically focused or geared toward engaged couples that are getting married or those couples that have been married between 0 and 5 years who could just benefit by spending some time investing in their marriage, tuning it up. Our next marriage workshop event is March 7th and 8th. We do this at the Lexington campus. If you're interested in signing up or you know someone who should go and be a part of that, I encourage them to check out southland.church/marriage. All right, let's go. My guests today are guys that I love. They are friends of mine, and they serve in different capacities, but I love them, and they both have been on the podcast before. Locker Room, Ian Schweitzer, Ariea King. How are you guys doing?
Fantastic, man.
Doing good. Fighting through the snow.
Yeah, I'm telling you. Yeah, Ariea started out here before it started and got his wires mixed up. Thought he had to go back to Lexington, and then he came back. So, no one would even know that you're late unless I'd brought this up.
I know,
but
man.
It's all right.
I appreciate it.
I'm sorry.
Yeah.
I'm sorry. But
not trying to feed into any stereotypes, are we?
No, I am not. No. Don't you do that. Don't you do that. Hey, share with us a little bit about your family. It's a big church, 5 campuses. Not everybody knows everybody. And so give them a chance to get to know you, your family, your role at Southland, what campus you support, how long you've been on staff.
Yeah, I'll go first. My name's Ian. So I've been on staff for coming up on 9 years in April.
Man.
I'm excited about that.
Dude, that's wild.
Yeah. And I started at the Georgetown campus, did student ministry, did groups and outreach for a season, and now I do residency.
Yep.
Residency and young adults is the area I'm in, so getting to oversee those programs. I got to marry my wife shortly after starting here, so we've been married 8, almost 9 years as well.
Very cool.
And we live up in Georgetown, love it over there.
Yeah.
And our oldest daughter is Peyton.
Yep.
She's 11.
Gosh.
So she's been with our family for almost 6 years now through foster care and then adoption. Christian is 5. Zoe is 3. And then we have a new little guy. Our son Nathaniel was born in September, so he's 4 months old now.
Full quiver.
Yeah, it's been exciting.
Yeah.
So we got a full house.
Yeah.
And there's a lot. It's never a dull moment.
Yes.
My wife homeschools, and so they're always there. I know where to go if I want to see my crew.
Yeah.
But the snow's been a lot of fun. We've been sledding, getting out there.
It's tough to have a snow day when you're working from home from school.
Exactly. We're gonna work today, guys.
That's right. Cool. Ariea, how about you, buddy?
Yeah, man. My name is Ariea. I serve at the Lexington campus. Man, I have been attending Southland since 2008, but I've only been on staff for a year.
Yeah.
And it doesn't really seem that way because I've been around here for so long. But
My man was an elder.
I did that for
Bring
3
the
years.
respect.
No, humility is my game.
That's
man.
right. That's right.
So,
That's right.
So yeah, man, been on staff for a year. Man, it's been an interesting year, I would say the least.
Yeah.
Coming from one world into another, and you're just trying to figure out the rhythms of ministry.
Yeah.
Man, that's a challenge within itself. But man, I've been so blessed to have so many people along my side who would help and just guide me and just share all their wisdom and experiences and everything. But yeah, man, I've been with my wife for 20 years. We've been married 14 of those years.
Okay.
But I'm in a different season than Ian. You know, my kids, I have one adult and 2 teenagers. And man. And let me tell you, no one told me about this.
We've shared some fun parenting stories, haven't we, bro?
Oh my goodness, man.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. So I have a 20-year-old who is still transitioning, trying to figure out what's next for her. And then I have a son who's a senior in high school at Frederick Douglass High School, and I have a daughter who attends Lafayette. So yeah, man.
Yeah, it's a lot.
It's a lot going
Very
on.
Cool. Hey, just a quick question. I think it's always good for people to kind of look behind the curtain just when you're as a staff member. What's it like to be on staff here? What do you love about serving here? What do you love about the teams that you get to serve with?
I mean, it's a team dynamic here at Southland.
Yeah.
And so I absolutely love just the idea that I never have to go at my job alone.
Yeah.
There's always going to be someone willing to help, brainstorm, carry the ideas. And so, my main role is residency, overseeing our program, helping young adults who feel called to ministry to spend a year with us, learn how to serve the church for a long time. And at the end of the year, we count up how many people have invested, how many staff.
Oh, that's cool.
And it
That's
is
right.
easily over half of our staff
Yeah.
that have invested in some way in that year in our residence. So same thing with young adults. Evan, who leads that ministry, we've got tons of our young adult staff who are involved, who help lead, who help carry out and brainstorm those events. So, man, it's just a fun staff to be a part of because we love getting to work together and carry out the mission to reach lost and broken people for Jesus.
That's good. How about you, Ariea?
Yeah, man, I would second that. Like I said, just being on staff for a year, man, it's just so refreshing when you come in each and every day. And if you're struggling with something, there's somebody on staff that would step to the side with you and pray with you.
Yeah.
Man, I just love that how everyone is just so Christ-centered. Their hearts and minds are focused on the mission. We talk about missions and methods all the time, and methods would change, but man, the mission has always remained the same, and it's just what Ian said: reaching lost and broken people.
Yeah.
So I get to serve in our after-school ministry.
Yeah.
It's brand new.
Dude, this is such a cool thing that we're piloting, and I'm so thankful that you stepped into that role, man.
Yeah, man.
So talk about what it is that you do. Talk about what that looks like.
So,
and I know you're kind of learning even along the way. We're trying
for sure,
stuff.
man. So essentially, it's a program, man, that's designed for kids who have nothing to do, nowhere to go.
Yeah.
And it just provides them an opportunity to come in to socially connect, mentally engage, physically train, emotionally heal, spiritually grow, all in the name of Jesus.
I love it, man.
And man, we're just so student focused. You know, I love what student ministries do. You know, that's where I really start cutting my teeth in ministry. I was a small group leader for almost 10 years.
Yeah.
And, you know, man, that taught me everything I needed to know about parenting my own teenagers.
Yeah.
And I'm still not ready.
Yeah.
So
I hear you.
Because they're equipped with all types of
Hardest
curveballs,
job
man.
on the planet. But so you get basically kids come after school and hang out for a couple of hours.
You know, it's a decompressing for them. You know, they've been in school all day, and you know, one of the things I learned in student ministries is kids just want to come in and have a conversation. Yeah. You know, they just want to, you know, unload. Yeah. And they want to be heard. Yeah. You know, they want to be heard, and you know, and as I've heard so many times said before, and just having conversations with Matt, you know, I think it's a John Maxwell quote: "Kids don't care how much you know until they know how much you care." And man, that is a truth bomb. Yeah. You know, and kids want to be engaged, they want to be talked to, and they want to be heard. And man, most importantly, know their name. Yeah. Man, know the kid's name.
Yeah. Yeah. That's good. I mean, you guys have different things for them to do. There's games, different things like that. I know we're still outfitting some things that will help that space, but it could be helping them with homework, but it's mostly just doing life on life and just being available.
Yeah, man, just doing life on life, you know, hanging out with them. So we do have like basketball, spike ball, why am I drawing a blank?
Oh, the 9-square.
The 9-square thing. And then we even have cornhole. Yeah. It's just several different things. And we even trying to like, you know, outfit the space for where you can do like some like real physical training. Yeah. You know,
cool. Y'all,
awesome. Man, it's going to be amazing. And so I've got so many volunteers who've already reached out, and I'm like, hey, well, let's put a pin in that. I promise you I'm coming back to you, because there is a place for you in this ministry and how God has equipped you to serve this ministry. So we're going to come back to it. So yeah, man, it's just, you know, they come in and they hang out. You know, we feed them. Yeah. You know, that's teenagers are always hungry. Like, I mean, I'm not a teenager and I'm still hungry. But, and man, and we just interact, engage. Yeah.
Hey, listen, I expect when all them weights get there, I expect some good gains on you. All right.
Hey, listen, you can expect it.
Hey, real quick, you guys plug what you do, especially from residency standpoint, or even with young adults. If they want to know more, or even with your after school program, if they want to know more, how can they get in touch with you?
Yeah, so residency, if you are a college student or a young adult who feels called to ministry, wants to pursue local church ministry vocationally, would love to talk to you about spending a year with us. We're in the recruiting and interview process right now, so reach out to me, Schweitzer at southland.church. We'll put it in the show notes.
Put it in the show notes, because it's going to be a spelling challenge.
Or southland.church/residency.
Yeah, there you go.
But let me highlight young adults. We've got, if you're in your 20s and just want to connect with other young adults, go to southland.church/young adults. And we have rally points the first Tuesday of every month at the Lexington campus. Awesome. It's a lot of fun. And then something coming new this year is our college ministry. So we are spending a lot of time in this next 6 months trying to think and pray and vision of what could it be like to be on our college campuses at each of our Southland campuses. Yeah. So we reach a lot of different colleges here in Central Kentucky. So if you are a college student or interested in investing in college students, reach out to me. I would love to talk to you about how we could do that well, and how we could, just help college students know who Jesus is and be connected to our church.
Yeah.
Yeah, man. So if you're looking to jump in with after school and you just want to volunteer and hang out with kids, and you have a heart for kids, and you know you really want to share the gospel with kids, when you have that opportunity, you can reach out to me at aking, southlandchristian.org, or aking at southland.church. Again, in the show notes. Yeah. But yeah, if you're an educator or a parent, and you have a child that you think would benefit from this, you know, please send them my way. You can get them registered on Southland. I think it's southland.church/afterschool.
Cool.
And then and if you just like know a teacher that have kids or know kids who know kids, send them my way.
Could benefit from it.
Yeah, they don't even have to register online. They can just show up. We get them registered there.
It's good, man.
Yeah.
A King at Southland.church. What a sweet
a king
email address, a king. Hey, I'm kicking off season 14 by asking 3 questions before we jump in. Again, we're doing a lot of upfront prep stuff, but I think it's still really helpful. And I'm looking forward to hearing your all's answers. And so the first question is, think about your life and a Christian man that has made just a huge investment. Maybe he was a mentor, but had a huge impact on you. What was something that they did or said or taught you or challenged you with? What was something like that? You think of something?
Yeah, man. I'm the youngest out of 6. I have 4 brothers and a sister, but
Okay.
I have the brother who was closer to me in age. It wasn't so much what he said, although he said a lot. It's what he did. He allowed me to watch him go through a very tough season of his life, where he, lost his job, lost his marriage, and then through it all, this man remained joyful. And I can remember one night, because we used to work together, and we were working the graveyard shift, and we were having a conversation when I reached over and tapped on his window, because we were cable repair guys, so we were in our trucks, we kind of parked, facing the other direction, and I tapped on his window one night. I said, man, what are you in there doing? He's like, I'm in that word. I'm like, what do you mean? And so he pulls up a Charles Stanley Life Principle Bible.
Yeah.
Then he pulls out his concordance, and then he pulls out the Bible.
That's cool.
And man, he just starts walking me through what the Lord was revealing to him through that season of his life. And I just remember saying to him, like, just all the things he was sharing. I remember saying to him, like, man, I want the Lord to speak to me like that.
Yeah.
He was like, He will.
Yeah.
He's like, but you gotta get in your word.
Yeah.
And man, that changed everything for me.
Did it?
Oh, totally. Like, I mean, like I said, he was the big brother that I idolized.
Yeah.
And he never took advantage of that. You see that sometimes where you have older brother who would take advantage of the younger brother, steer him down the wrong direction. He never did that with me. There were several times where I was trying to go down a path that he had already been down.
Yeah.
And he'll lovingly challenge me, and just like the enemy likes to do, you like to recall their past. Like, hey man, you remember? He's like, I sure do. He's like, that's the reason why I'm telling you about it now.
Yeah.
So yeah, man, I have tremendous
cool.
respect for him, man. He's truly my mentor, discipler, big brother.
That's awesome.
Yeah,
man.
for
That's
sure.
cool. It's your brother. That's
Yeah,
awesome.
man.
How about you, Ian?
Yeah. Mine, I've plenty of guys, especially, I grew up in this church, invested in me. But when I was thinking, it was actually one of my peers, a good friend of my men's group named John Wright. And we met when we served in student ministry here 12 years ago or whatever it was. And he was at PT school at UK at the time.
Okay.
And he and a bunch of his PT friends spent every Tuesday morning before going to school downtown feeding people and just having conversations. And so we actually both got married and moved at the same time, both to Georgetown area.
Yep.
And so we ended up reconnecting when I got that. He and I with some other guys started a men's group. And so, my life's just been forever impacted by him. And he always just has a way of demonstrating humility and caring for the poor, both financially and spiritually. And
That's awesome.
seeing the way he orients his life to spend time with people that don't know Jesus and that desperately need hope has always been inspiring. And there's also one thing that I remember one time he shared with me, it really challenged to my idols, because I'm guessing some guys in the group, because he told me one time his goal is to every year care less about UK basketball.
How about that?
And I'm being thinking, it's like, that's an incredible goal that I also will be very challenged with, just to think of, he's that invested to say, I know this is something I love, but every year I want to care less about it so I can care more about what God has in store for my life.
Yeah, we got to hitch our wagon to the right thing.
That's right.
If not, we just get really disappointed.
Yep.
Or we have expectations that are so crazy high. So anyway, what's one thing that you're doing to invest in your marriage right now? What's one practical thing? Maybe it's a tool or a habit or just something that God's been challenging with and going, this is what God's kind of directed my attention toward as it relates to just investing in your wife and your marriage.
I've been reading this book called Beyond the Battle.
Okay.
I'm halfway through. I'm reading 4 books. I'm a pretty slow reader through a bunch of books right now.
Yeah.
But
Beyond the Battle.
But chapter 1, he talks about a couple marriage killers, entitlement and expectation. Yeah. And so
That'll preach.
I've been doing my best to rid myself of those two things. Yep. And man, when you get married and when you have kids, you realize how selfish you are. Or you just continue being more selfish. That's in reality. And so especially when I've got a wife, I've got 4 kids at home that she's caring for. Yeah. It could be there's a lot of things you bring into a marriage thinking or expecting and feeling entitled to. And so I've been doing my best just to say, I'm going to come in, again, that Ephesians 5, where if we're coming in like Jesus, to expect nothing out of this marriage, but to just a chance to serve and to sacrifice for.
Yes.
And by no means am I perfect.
Yeah.
But, that's why I try to remind myself, I'm in 3 a.m. rocking my son back to sleep.
Yeah.
And you got to remind yourself, man, this is a gift.
Yeah.
Can I be grateful and be full of gratitude for this moment?
Yeah.
And that's been something I've been trying to hold on to.
That's good.
Yeah, man.
That's good, man.
I'm not an avid reader, but my wife and I both have just started a book called Cherish.
Cherish.
Yeah. And it's something that was encouraged to us by our counselors. We seek marriage counseling, and it's not to save our marriage, but to continue to help our marriage
to build it, man.
Oh, absolutely, man. We love it. We love them, and they love us back. And so, man, it's a time of the month that we do it once a month, and we go in and we just talk about things that we're facing mostly as parents, and then because again, teenage years are some very tough years.
And you got to be a united front as a married
Absolutely,
couple,
absolutely. And man, it's so funny, man. The games your kids were trying to play. And if you're not a united front, they'll
divide and conquer.
They will, man.
Yeah.
They will. And so it's really, really good that we both are on the same page and we have each other's back, and I appreciate that.
Yeah.
So yeah, man, that's one thing that we're doing right now.
That's good. You guys both have great wives.
Yeah.
Here's one thing, just as it relates to kids, you kind of begin to lead into this, but is there something right now that God's got your attention toward as it relates to how you, and I know that our kids are different ages and all that kind of thing, but is there something right now that God's really impressed upon you? Man, I need to be about this, or I need to be focused on this, or I need to make sure that my mind and heart's around this as it relates to just how you invest spiritually with your kids?
I'm trying to find unique ways to intentionally invest time. Obviously, a lot of quality time with the kids. Love that. But so I've got 2 things we've been trying. The first one is with Peyton, who's 11. So she'll be in Southland Students next year, in 6 months from now, which is pretty crazy if you're middle school.
Yeah.
And just knowing she's homeschooled, she's not exposed to many things. And so we started in the summer having what we call late night chats with Peyton, where we put all these topics on a note, me and my wife did, of, hey, here are things she's going to be exposed to when she's with a lot of other students, and here's things we want to talk about. And so that way,
great, man.
We can approach things like sex and social media and phones and dating and how you make an identity for yourself, friendships, all those things, and we can keep coming back to those. And there's an intentional time each week to talk about those. So
that's awesome, man.
We've loved doing that, and it was really sweet. She ended up saying, like, I'm not sure I'm going to like Southland Students more than these talks, which I know there's not much more time for that.
Enjoy it. Yeah.
But it was really sweet. I
love that, man.
And so that's one thing with her. And then, my men's group, we have all had kids at the same time, tons of little kids coming. We have a lot of boys.
Yeah.
And so we started this idea. My buddy John Wright, actually, I mentioned earlier, been working out together. And we started this thing on Saturday mornings called the Father-Son Fitness Club.
Oh, I like it.
So we invite our sons to come with us, and John Wright leads a Devo, and then we work out, and we have some principles. And so this past Saturday was our biggest one. We had 6 dads and 9 sons, ranging from ages 4 to 8. So it's a little chaotic. You're not getting as good of a workout, but I just I want my son to be around other Christian men who I know are living it out. And so this is one practical way to do that.
That's awesome, Ian. That's cool. How about you, Eric?
Yeah, man. So again, in this season of parenting teenagers, they're on the go and they're busy. So one of the biggest things I'm very intentional about is just praying for my kids and praying for those opportunities to have those conversations, because you cannot carve out those times anymore now because they're always on the go. Yeah. And so what I do is I just try to wait for an opportunity to have a conversation when the conversation presents itself. And so, and a lot of times, so my youngest daughter, Veda, she's more intuitive on certain things. Like she'll come and she'll be more open and engage the conversation. So she's easier to have those conversations with. But man, my biggest thing that I do is pray for my kids and pray with my kids and pray for the wisdom of how to guide and shepherd them and have those conversations, because, again, what you're doing on the front end, Ian, is so important, because when they get to that 16, 17, they're going to remember those conversations. And what you're doing is you're establishing trust with your daughter, and you're establishing trust with your son.
Yep.
And that's what you have to do. I mean, if you can't get your kids to trust you, why would they trust anything else you say?
Yeah. These three questions are going to be gold for this semester. I love it. This season, it's good.
Yeah.
All right. So we're wrapping up actually a 3-part series inside of Locker Room called Encounters with Jesus, and today's episode is called Come On Out. And so it's a story that's found in 3 gospel books: Matthew 14, Mark 6, and John 6. And it's a story about when Jesus was walking on the water and they see him, and we're going to dig it out, but Peter actually asked Jesus to call him out on the water. And so it's a powerful encounter that in that moment for him, but also for us. And we'll park our time in Matthew 14, 22 through 33. So why don't you guys read it, and then we'll dig it out together, okay?
Yeah, I'll start. Immediately, Jesus made the disciples get into the boat and go on ahead of him to the other side while he dismissed the crowd. After he had dismissed them, he went up on the mountainside by himself to pray. Later that night, he was there alone, and the boat was already a considerable distance from land, buffeted by the waves because the wind was against it. Shortly before dawn, Jesus went out to them, walking on the lake. While the disciples saw him walking on the lake, they were terrified. "It's a ghost," they said, and cried out in fear. But Jesus immediately said to them, "Take courage, it is I. Do not be afraid."
Lord, if it's you, Peter replied, tell me to come out to you on the water. Come, he said. And then Peter got down out of the boat and walked on the water and came towards Jesus. But when he saw the wind, he was afraid and began to sink and cried out, "Lord, save me." Immediately Jesus reached out his hand and caught him. "You of little faith," he said, "why do you doubt?" And when they climbed back into the boat, the wind died down, and those that were in the boat whispered him, saying, "Truly, you are the Son of God."
Mm-hmm. Yeah, what a powerful passage that has so much application for our lives. And again, you may go, I don't know, how's it going to, we're going to dig it out. You're going to see how much cool application and relevancy this passage has for us. But after reading this, just initially, how cool would it have been Peter walking on the water? Wouldn't that have been awesome? I mean, have you ever,
Pretty crazy.
You guys ever water skied before?
Never.
Tried.
Yeah.
I failed.
Yeah. Not on 2, not on 1.
I'm a decent swimmer.
Yeah. Okay.
I can tread water pretty well.
Yeah.
The idea
Yeah.
of walking, though, that's...
Yeah, but I mean, it's like I remember dating Sarah. Their family ended up having this boat, and so we went. I don't know if I'd ever even been on boats. From Fairdale, we don't not many boats, and so we go on this boat, and they're trying to you do the beast, which is the tube, and they do all that, and then they get the skis out, and we start with 2, and you gotta really aim back, and it takes a lot to pull you out of the water, and you're just eating water the whole time. And then when you get up, it's unbelievable. And then eventually we went from 2 to 1, and I haven't skied in a while, but man, it's such a cool thing to go, dude, I am, but that's by a boat, but it's with its own power. And Peter, here he is going, I'm just going to take a step out because he invited me to.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think that's really, really cool. So, we'll get into this, and I'll try to move past this part pretty quickly.
Yep.
But I just wanted to create some context for what's going on in Matthew 14. And so, because context is king. And so at the very first part of Matthew 14, John the Baptist, who was Jesus' cousin, begins his ministry, and that ends this 400-year span of silence between the Old Testament and New Testament. God had, people are going, what's going on? Where's God? What's he doing? Well, he brings John in to prepare the way and to talk about the coming Messiah, which is Jesus. And they're actually cousins, but the time finally comes. Jesus puts on flesh. He's 30. He's baptized. John baptizes him, and his ministry begins. And so, but John had been telling everybody, preparing the way. He's been baptizing people into repentance, and he's big on speaking truth. He is a man's man. I mean, just what he eats, what he wears, all this kind of stuff. And he doesn't shy away from truth to the point where he challenges people to repent and prepare their hearts. But he also, at one point, calls out King Herod, the king there, for having an affair. And Herod had abused his power, and he actually takes his brother's wife, which is gross. It's like your sister-in-law. But anyway, but he calls him out, and Herod's ticked about it. And so he abuses his power again, has John arrested. And not long after that, where we find ourselves here in 14, Herod has John beheaded, which is a terrible way to die. Mm-hmm. And John's disciples are heartbroken. They come, they bury him, and then they go and tell Jesus. And Jesus is heartbroken by the loss of not just a cousin, but but a really good man that's been instrumental in preparing the way for him. And so then the second part here of Matthew 14 says he gets away to withdraw on a boat to a remote, solitary place, probably grieving the loss of his cousin and John, and he lands on the shore after that. And all these people are there. They've heard about him, thousands of people. And Jesus is like, all right, he has compassion on them, and he begins healing the sick. It's getting late in the day. They're in a remote place, and the disciples are like, Jesus, you need to shoo them away. Just move them out because it's getting late. And Jesus is like, hey, let's feed them. You guys feed them. And they're like, what do you mean? How are we going to feed them? There's no Chick-fil-A. There's nothing around here, And so he says, go out and look, see what's there. And so they go through all these people, and they end up with 5 loaves of bread and 2 fish. Jesus says, bring them to me. He prays, and he does something miraculous, which is he takes this Lunchable, and then he feeds 5,000 men, not including the women and children there. So probably 15,000 people or more. And he doesn't just feed them. At the end, he says, hey, pick up what's remaining. And there ends up being 12 basketfuls of leftovers. How many disciples are there? 12. I think that's on purpose. I think Jesus is trying to help them understand that he is who they think he is, and that he can't just supply all of their needs, but he can do even more than what is needed. And so, again, this life of abundance that he calls us to. And he's trying to build the faith of these 12 men. And so by the end of this powerful moment, end of the day, long day, Jesus goes, hey, disciples, you guys take off in the boat, go ahead, and they push off, and he begins to dismiss the crowds, probably having some time with them, and then he gets away just to be alone with his Father and connect with him. Yep. And then it's the fourth watch, which is between 3 and 6 a.m., which is when you're feeding and rocking a baby.
Yeah, I'm there.
Jesus comes down and sees that the boat is pretty far away. It's too far away, and it says the waves were pretty strong, and they were pushing the boat away from the land of the shore where he was. So what does Jesus do? He goes, all right, I'm going to pull up my pants legs here, and we're going to walk on the water. And the God who made the water, calling it into existence in the creation account, has the authority to walk on it, and he's walking toward the boat. And as you read, Ian, it says when the disciples saw him walking, like they were terrified. It's a ghost. It's funny how we always go to, it's a ghost, And it says they cried out in fear. It's dark, middle of the night. All of a sudden, there's this silhouette. I mean, can you imagine? Many of these guys, this is their job. They've been on boats forever, and you may even think, is that what I see? But they see the silhouette, and it just keeps getting bigger and bigger, but they can't see who it is, and they freak out, which is what any of us would do. And so, as I'll park it here for a second, just ask you guys this question: has there ever been a moment where you guys were just gripped or terrified with fear, whether it was something as a kid or watching your first scary movie or going to a haunted house? Can you think of anything that comes to mind for you?
Man, when I was a kid, I hated Dracula.
You did? Dracula was your thing?
Yeah. Think about it, man. A dude who bites you in the neck.
Yeah. He's really white, too.
Yeah.
Really white.
And so, man, I was always terrified of that, and just didn't really have much for it. I'm a big bah humbug Halloween guy anyway. Mm-hmm. Like I don't care for Halloween. Yeah. I only like orange and black just because my wife's a Bengals fan.
Yeah.
So the Bengals have redeemed that color for me. But other than that, man, I'm not a Halloween guy. But yeah, man, I was always terrified of Dracula, and I can remember when I had one of those classic childhood nightmares, and I could have sworn that I saw a crucifix type deal hanging in my closet. And it was what's his name? Grim Stoker. What's his name? The famous Dracula?
Yeah. Yes.
The guy who wrote the book?
Yeah.
Yeah, man. I laid there frozen for at least an hour. I wouldn't move.
Yeah.
I had to use the restroom and everything. I was not going to risk it.
Yeah. That's good. And it was 2 years ago. I'm just kidding. I'm just kidding.
Actually 5.
That's right.
Mine
Give me
is
some credit.
Mine is pretty recent. As an adult, Ian, I jump scare. If things pop out, I wish it wasn't in me.
Yeah.
That's a man quality I wish I had.
Yeah,
just to,
that you could
to
put
not
away.
flinch when something flies at me.
Yeah.
But anyway, I went to, how theme parks in October become scary ones. So in Charlotte, where I used to work, there's Carowinds. And in October becomes Scarewinds. So they have all these haunted mazes you go in. I don't know why I signed up for it. I know what's going to happen to me, but so every corner you turn, some teenager dressed up as like something is going to pop out and scare you, and I'm going to freak out each time. And so that's what I think of when just like, it's happening, it's going to come. And it's a ghost. I'm terrified.
Well, if I were to say, hey, it lands on this one verse, it's Matthew 14:27 for us today. He immediately said to them when they were terrified, they were screaming out, freaking out. He says, "Take courage, it is I. Don't be afraid." And there's something powerful in those 8 words that if we would just, put those to heart, keep those at the forefront of our minds, it's so important for us. And there's 2 things that came to mind as I was kind of researching, thinking about this and prepared for it. But one is just our relationship with Jesus, that we don't have to be afraid. We can take courage. We never, and whether it's our sin pattern or our struggles with some of that stuff or the circumstances that come our way, we don't ever have to fear coming back to the Lord or coming to the Lord or talking to Him, or after sin, raising our head up to talk to God, because it says, the Bible says perfect love drives out fear. And our relationship with God is never meant to put us in a panic mode or paranoid or to leave us on edge regardless of what's going on in our lives. And so you talk about just why that's critical for us, because I think sometimes we go, no, when I'm good, He loves me, and I don't need to be afraid. But when I'm not, or things are going, you see what I'm saying? Sometimes the stuff that goes in our heads.
I think it's very critical to understand that, because fear is the playground for the enemy.
Yeah.
If the enemy knows that you're already fearful, then what he wants to do is create and cast more doubt. And if he can do that, then he can operate, on your conscience, on your heart, on your belief. What do you believe about God? Do you believe what God says? Not only do you believe in God, but do you believe what He says? Do you take Him at His promises? Because if you don't take Him at His promises, and then you allow fear to set in, then that's when the enemy has a foothold, and he's ready to go to work.
Yeah,
he's ready to go to work.
Yeah, if he wants to be fearful of a lot of things, and if the most important thing that we could fear, if he could do that, would be to fear the one who loves us, the one who came and died for us. If we can create some kind of chasm or distance between that, then we're in trouble. Anything else?
Yeah, I just think of the easy yoke Jesus has for us, and again, it's that. Hey, bring those fears, bring those difficulties to me. I want to carry it for you. I want to give you an easy yoke, and to remind yourself of, we've got a good God. We just got to go to Him. He's in control.
Yeah. What are His intentions for me? Well, they're good. They're good. The second part of that, these 8 words, is as it relates to the circumstances that we find ourselves in. And so whatever's going on, whatever it is, take courage. It is I. Don't be afraid. He's with us. In fact, the Holy Spirit lives in us. And these are critical words that, in the face of challenge or pain or circumstances or earth-shattering, earth-altering circumstances, if we're not careful, those things can leave us in really bad places. And so here's what's true. Every single locker room listener has something going on right now that could easily cripple them in fear, yet Jesus is telling us something different. Take courage, it is I. Don't be afraid. Anything on that before we jump into this text?
Yeah, I just think of, my generation below us, anxiety and what it looks like to be piled on by just all these potential worries that could come in the future. And I wrestle with that. Like when you're up at night at 3 a.m. and the devil's kind of whispering these things to you. You're not going to be good. This is going to go wrong next year, whatever it is. And so a lot of times, then you look at the state of the world. It can be overwhelming. So oftentimes just reminding myself of revelation, of knowing we have a God who's coming back to make everything right.
Yes.
And beyond that, we have a God right now living inside of us, the Holy Spirit, who's given us everything. He can be everything we need to power on, to not worry about what's to come. So that's kind of what I thought of.
Yeah.
Well, in all of this, the story takes a turn here, which is really surprising. Matthew 14:28, Peter says, "Hey, Lord, if it's you," he's just went from freaking out to, "Well, if it's you, then tell me to come out," And it's such a head scratcher because it's just Peter.
Yeah.
He's so reactive. And if you begin to kind of pay attention to, as you see Peter in all the stories in the gospel, you'll just see he's first to things. So he overspeaks. He jumps out in front sometimes without even thinking. I mean, I can identify a lot with Peter. But why do you think Peter would do that? What would cause him to do that? What is that? What do you think? What do you guys think?
I don't know. Maybe Peter was a skeptic a little bit. You know,
Yeah.
he dealt with skepticism a little bit. I don't know.
Yeah.
Or, you know, I mean, it said it was just before dawn. Maybe Peter really couldn't see.
Yeah.
Maybe he couldn't see Jesus.
Yeah.
You know. But you know, Jesus always says, you know, my flock, the flock knows the shepherd's voice.
Yeah.
Maybe Peter should have recognized the
I know
voice.
that voice.
Yeah.
If that's him, come on, bring me out.
Bring me out.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I love the boldness.
Yeah.
Like, I wish I had a 1% of his boldness, because
Sure.
like I'm more of a sit in the boat kind of guy.
I gotcha.
I'm grateful
Definitely.
for guys like
Yep.
you and
Yep.
Peter who are more like, hey, let's just do this. I'm a good encourager of those folks. Yeah, you should go. You should go get out of that boat. That'd be fun.
Us type of people face plant a lot, and then
Yeah.
there's some cool things that happen. But yes,
I
absolutely.
take a lot of videos of you guys,
Yeah, that's right.
and see what
And-
happens.
And then I learned.
Yeah,
what happens here.
Don't do that.
Yeah, that's right. That's
But
right.
his boldness, I mean, yeah, there's something said he wanted to experience all of it, and he wanted to get what Jesus was saying, and because of that, he was greatly rewarded. And so,
Yeah, so here's the cool thing. She says, yeah, come on. He didn't go, hey, you can't do this. I'm the Messiah.
Yeah.
I'm God. You're not. Stay in the boat. I'm going to get there. He goes, no, I'm going to come on out. Why would Jesus invite Peter to do that?
you know, when you read the Gospels, you're going to see Jesus react a lot to faith.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think of the Roman centurion who said,
Yeah.
I know from here you can heal my son.
Yeah.
And it's, or my servant, or whatever it is. Yeah. And
yeah, because they were going to the house. He's
Yeah.
like, hey, you don't even need to come. I recognize a man in authority.
Yeah.
You can do that from here.
And the idea of like, Jesus was amazed.
Yeah.
So when the God of the universe is amazed at something.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so this idea of faith, and he said, okay,
Yeah.
Peter's taking a step of faith.
Yeah. My
Come
boy.
on, come
Yeah.
on out.
Come
My
on
boy.
out here.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Anything else, Ariea?
Yeah, I just think he also wanted to reveal his glory.
Yeah.
I think he wanted, because I mean, it's Peter. Peter's the star of the story, but the other 11 are watching.
Yeah.
like he wants to display that. He wants
Yeah.
them to see it.
Yeah. I
Yeah,
love that.
so-
Well, you both are on staff. We've kind of flirted a little bit with this, but you both knew Jesus and God before coming on staff here. And you worked vocational jobs, and then God put a calling in your life to come and join our staff. And so, Ian, it's been a little longer for you. Ariea, it's more recent. But
Yep.
do you mind sharing a little bit of that about what that looked like? What was the battle like to leave? And I don't mean whatever job you had was comfortable. Not that it was that, but it was what you knew to step into something, maybe to jump on staff at a church. I mean, I'm sitting here going, this is the last thing I'd ever thought I'd ever do in my life. You know, so as you're thinking about your own story, how does that? What sticks out to you?
Yeah, man. So I had just recently finished up earning my master's in education.
Yeah.
And and just going through that whole process, praying through that whole process, I really thought I was going to be in education for the rest of my life.
Yeah.
Prior to education, I worked for telecommunications. I was a cable repair guy for 18 years.
Wow.
And so and so man, here I am pivoting, making a transition into education
Yeah.
because I just always had this heart and desire for young people, invested in the next generation. And so, God just had it to where I would end up in education and become a teacher. And so I was completely like all in on that.
Yeah.
And then the phone call comes saying, hey, like, there's this new ministry initiative that, we're launching here and you're the guy. And I'm like, well, the Lord ain't telling me that. But
So
no,
what? Who is this?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's right.
And so,
That's right.
man, that really thrusted me into just like constant prayer. Like, Lord, this does not make sense to me.
Yeah.
You allowed me to go through, finish up my undergrad, and then go and get my master's.
You've been teaching, and
and man, then here I am.
and you're making a difference where you were.
Absolutely, man. Like
yeah.
there was, I mean, when they say the harvest is plenty, the workers are few,
Yeah.
man, go to a high school.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Like they're in the hallways.
Yes.
And so, man, I love being in that place and space with those kids. And,
Yeah.
I always had an opportunity to drop a truth bomb every now and then. And, they start calling me Dr. King in the hallway.
Is
And
that
I'm like,
right?
I have,
Yeah, easy.
I have no doctorate, but
Yeah.
but yeah, man, and then that just having that opportunity to be there, and then this happened, and then here I am making another hard pivot.
Yeah.
And I'm like, man, this is wild. This is wild. And then after prayer and just like having conversations with people who I know that also pray and hear from the Lord, God gently revealed to me. He was like, hey, man, this journey you've been on the last 10 years was
Preparatory.
That's exactly what it was, man.
Yeah.
That was the answer I came to.
I used you then, but I'm going to use you. Yeah, but I'm going to
Exactly.
take what you did then to help you now.
Man, it was his training program.
Yeah.
It was his training program. And man, let me
love
tell you,
that, man.
and that program it can be tough.
Yeah.
It could be tough, but man, he was loving and kind through the whole process, man, and brought me through it.
Yeah. I'm so glad that you're here on staff, man.
Yeah.
That's awesome. Ian, how about you, buddy?
Yeah, for me, I had tried ministry.
Okay.
And I kind of failed at it.
Okay.
Like I was a youth pastor for 2 years
Okay.
at church, and went to school for ministry. But those 2 years, they were okay.
Yeah.
But it kind of was like I'm not sure I'm that good of a youth minister. And so when I left there, I left there knowing I didn't really have much of a plan. So I ended up working at a bank, and then I enjoyed it. I loved it was fun to do that. I had some success, and I kind of just settled into this pattern of I probably was make this my career.
Yeah.
And
How long did you do that?
I did about a year and a half in between. And so when I was approached to apply for a job at Southland, which by the way was a dream job. I mean, that was going to Southland growing up like that. And I said no at first.
Did
you?
you?
I'll just be a good volunteer.
Sure.
I'll go. I'll participate.
Was it your fear from your previous?
Yeah, it was like I've tried that before. I'm not very good at it, but I think also in that moment, it was a lot more safe to stay at the bank. There was a lot clearer path.
Yeah.
This is what you're going to do. You can do these things.
Yeah.
Whereas I work at the church now, it's not nearly as easy. It's going to demand a whole lot more of me, a lot more challenge. But God just had to remind me, hey, this is what I called you to.
Yeah.
And you never dreamed of working in a bank. You're
Sure.
just doing that. But you dreamed of serving the local church.
I love that.
And I ended up taking that step to apply and got the job and have loved it.
That's awesome.
Loved every moment of it.
Well, we'll circle back into Matthew 14. We'll just kind of check out how this little experiment went.
Yeah.
Peter asked Jesus to come out. Jesus says, come on. And he does. It says, and Peter got down on the boat, walked on the water, and came towards Jesus. An amazing verse 29. And then 30, it says, but when he saw the wind, he was afraid and began to sink and cried out, Lord, save me. It feels like when we teach our kids how to ride a bike. They've been on training wheels. We finally like, hey, they've been doing this for a while. We're going to take them off. And so we're doing this today. And so we get them on a bike. They're standing position, feet on the pedals. We got our hand on the seat or the handlebars. And then we're going, hey, listen, here's what we do. We're going to start moving. I need you to start pedaling. And we're going to count down. And then 3, 2, 1, and you take off. And it's funny because my 22-year-old daughter, I remember where we were as quickly as yesterday. It feels like, we're moving, and we start moving. I'm jogging with her, and then I'm going, all right, I'm going to let go. I'm going to let go now. You got this. And she goes, Dad, I'm doing it. And then all of a sudden she's like, and then the gravity of that, what she's doing gets a hold of her, and then the thing starts wobbling, and then she falls over on this track in Seattle. But yet it was like, dude, this was awesome. And it filled with utter joy, and then just great panic. And that's what happens, Peter. But the reality is, he's the second dude to ever walk on water. And he gets out there and he's blown away. And his eyes are on Jesus. And he starts taking steps. It's like, this should go, I should go down, but I'm standing. He has me. And then all of a sudden Peter feels the wind blowing against his face and the waves probably hitting his legs. And he takes his eyes off of Jesus onto those things. And he fixates on the circumstances. And locker room, when we do that, our response to fear in that way is always the same. We always begin to sink. We get sabotaged by fear, overwhelmed by our circumstances. We feel the floor fall out below us, and we can sink. And so the moment we take our eyes off of Jesus, our circumstances can distort and dilute our faith. It can. It's almost like an eclipse. We keep our eyes on Jesus, and then all of a sudden we allow the circumstances to get in front of him, and it feels bigger even though it's not. There's no way that it's as big as Jesus, but it can feel that way. And whether that's stuff in our marriage that has gone unaddressed, and we go, man, we need to address those things, but we're afraid because if we move toward it, how's it going to go? What's this going to be like? Can we resolve it? And we get overwhelmed, and then we choose passivity, and our marriages begin to sink, or we worry about our kids and the decisions that they're making, and we're trying to figure out how much push and how much do I let them figure this out? And if we're not careful, we get paralyzed by that. And then our kids sink, and our relationship with our kids sink, or concerns about our health, or stuff at work, or a fractured relationship, or big decisions that are sitting on our tables that we've got to figure out, that we go, yeah, I'll get to it, and we don't. Or even something that God's trying to reveal in our lives that he wants us to do battle with or resolve, if we don't, it moves us into a place of sinking, a pit of passivity, a pit of depression, a pit of hopelessness, a deep, dark pit. So can you guys think of a moment in your lives where you were overwhelmed by your own circumstances and it directed your attention away from the Lord? And what did those circumstances do to you, and how did it impact your faith in that moment? You think of a moment like that?
Yeah, man. So like I just mentioned, I for 18 years, I was a cable repair guy, and my time there ended through a work injury.
Yeah.
And so, when that happens, you got to go through all the other like workman's comp and all those things or what have you. And so they were unsure if I would be able to come back and perform at the job that I was doing before I got hurt.
Sure.
And once that was determined that I could not, all that ran out. Yeah. And in that season of our lives, I was the primary income provider for my family. My wife didn't work; she was a stay-at-home mom.
Yeah.
And,
what do I do?
Yeah, and man, when I got the letter saying that I was terminated, man, dude, like at that point, like you start thinking about, how do I pay this?
Yes.
How do I pay that? How do I feed them? How do I?
Yeah.
And man, that sent
It's
me,
real
man,
fast.
Man, it sent me into like a. I believe I went into a depression a little bit, and it was just through conversations again. My brother D, just having that conversation with him, and he just reminded me. He's like, "Listen, man," he's like, "None of this has caught God off guard." He's like, he's not surprised by this situation at all. He's like, "Man, just remain faithful.
Yeah,
continue to take care of what you can take care of in the moment." He was like, "Don't try to do anything extra. Just do what you can do in the moment, and that's continue to love your family.
Yeah,
continue to do that." And that was some of the best words I'd heard in that moment. And it was very comforting. Yeah. And man, I stepped out on faith, man, and just kept doing the things I can take care of.
Yeah, that's good. That's really good. How about you, buddy?
I think back to a little over a year ago, and we went through a year, 11 months, where we lost 3 babies in pregnancy. Yeah. And when you think of circumstances, the first one was at 17 weeks, very traumatic. Second one was earlier on. The third one, again, about a year after the first, was at 14 weeks. And that one, we knew we were having a son. We were building up all this excitement about that. Yeah. And, man, over those span, the first couple were like, okay, we're going to keep it. Yeah. After the third time, at a certain point, you get to this, like, what are we doing here, God? Yeah. Right. And so that was a huge point of, you start taking your eyes off. It gets a little bit more hard to trust.
Beat down.
And so when thinking of, are we going to try again? Mm-hmm. And then we did get pregnant again. Every single step was like, can I still trust him at 20 weeks after we saw him here? Yeah. Can I still trust him? Mm-hmm. And there was that anxiety the entire time until...
And those are real questions that you both are just asking. Can I still trust him? Is he going to be enough? Is he true? Is he faithful and true?
Yeah.
And I'm really grateful that we have a happy ending to the story of now I get to hold my son. But reality is that may not have been the case. Yeah. And so we have to wrestle with those questions of even if he doesn't, like, are we going to still choose to follow? Yeah. So, that was certainly something that, my eyes came off him a couple times, that's for sure.
Yeah,
Absolutely. I am sure.
Well, the next thing is how Jesus responds to Peter. It says in verse 31, immediately Jesus reached out his hand. Don't miss the word immediately here. Immediately Jesus reached out his hand and called him. And then he said, you have little faith. He said, why did you doubt? And when they climbed into the boat, the wind died down. That's interesting, right? Mm-hmm. And those who were in the boat worshiped him, saying, truly you are the Son of God. And so a couple things here. One, the first one is immediately. He could have went, hey, I'm gonna let this life lesson really happen for Peter. I'm gonna let him get down to his waist, maybe his neck. I may even let him go all the way underwater, and then I'll grab him. But he doesn't do that. He immediately reaches out and takes Peter by the hand, and he gets him. He grabs him. He captures him, which means that Jesus is close to us in proximity, and he cares for us. Then he says to Peter, "You little faith, why did you doubt?" And you could look at that and go, "Is he yelling? Is he screaming? Is this all caps?" It's not. He's not shaming him. He's not calling him out. He's calling him. He's really calling him up, going, "Hey, buddy, you didn't have to doubt here. He wasn't stern. He was tender with Peter. And Peter's going, I was going to die. And the waves are hitting him, I'm sure. And Jesus going, hey, remember, man, I said, take courage inside. Don't be afraid. I'm the one who healed all those diseased and sick people on that shore. Remember the 12 basketfuls of food left over. Hey, remember when I called you and you came in from fishing and you stunk at it, and I said, hey, let's go back out, throw the nets on the other side, and you had so much fish that you couldn't bring them in the boat. I am that guy. You can trust me. When I call you towards something in faith, keep your eyes on me and trust me. You got this because we got this. And I think and then it says when they got in the boat, it says the wind stopped. It's like, Peter, I could have done that beforehand. It'd been cool. But verse 33, it says, all who were in the boat declared that Jesus, you are the Son of God. Those are three powerful verses about just failure and God's hand and which leads us to worship. So anything that jumps out to you as you look at those three verses?
Yeah, man, just, how Jesus handled Peter in that whole situation. Like, you just named off all the things that Peter got to witness firsthand. Like, he was a firsthand witness. Like, he's not hearing these stories like we hear the stories. Like, he got to see it firsthand. Yeah. And Jesus just says to him, you have little faith, why do you doubt? Yeah. And, we do that with our own kids. Yeah. We've been there for our kids. We've loved our kids. We've, provide for them, and we help them, and we've done all these things, and they still have their moments of doubts. It's a reminder to us of how we respond to our kids in those moments.
That's good.
Do we shame them? Do we scold? No, man. Just lovingly remind them. Hey, listen, I've been here. Yeah. We've done this. Yeah. Let's keep moving.
I got you. Let's go.
I got you. Let's keep going.
Let's go. Yeah.
Yeah. Just put two things: choosing to worship in our doubts. That played a huge role. I mean, in the circumstance I just talked about of my wife. Knew throughout all of this, a lot of times we need to press play on that Spotify playlist and allow ourselves to worship even in our doubts, to still sing and choose those words. So I like that. But also, like, I think of Peter choosing to accept God's patience and grace and mercy towards us, even in our times of doubt. Like, knowing we've got a God of patience and choosing to accept that He's going to still love us even in that.
Yeah. There's a verse Paul writes to the people in Jude. It says, it's Jude 1, 24 and 25. I love this passage. It says, to him who is able to keep you from stumbling or falling and to present you before his glorious presence without fault or with great joy. To the only God, our Savior, be glory and majesty and power and authority through Jesus Christ our Lord, before all ages, now and forevermore. Amen. He's able, locker room, to keep you from falling and to present you before his glorious presence without a single fault and with great joy. The same Jesus that reached out his hand to rescue Peter is the same Jesus that will reach out and rescue you and rescue us. And so, really cool reminder. I just want to, just for the sake of application, I want to hit some 5 quick things, and I'm going to zip through these pretty quick before we kind of wrap up. But just as you look back at this encounter with Jesus, these are really practical things. Number 1, taking risks are necessary for growth. They are. Here's the reality. Everybody wants to be strong, but nobody wants to get sore. That's the reality. So sometimes we got to get out of the boat. That's just the thing. So sometimes the thing that God is asking us to do requires something from us, and it puts us in harm's way or at risk, and it challenges us to step out where we can't see where our feet are going to land. And, sometimes the things that we're asking God to take away in our lives are the very things that God is actually using to conform us into the image of Christ. And we don't like it. We don't like it, but it's part of our story. Jesus could eliminate the wind, and he could have stopped the waves from hitting Peter's legs, but he didn't. He didn't. And every day we get to choose between comfort and growth. Comfort may be the American dream, but it's not God's heart for us. His heart for us is strong, robust faith that's anchored and grounded and trusting and obedient. God calls us to grow and grow up. And when we do that, we have to take risk, and we step out of the boat, and we trust him. I love what John Ortberg says. This is from this book title is actually around this story that we're talking about today, but it says if you want to walk on water, you got to get out of the boat. But it says the decision to grow always involves a choice between risk and comfort. This means that to be a follower of Jesus, you must renounce comfort as an ultimate value of your life. That's huge for us, right? It just is.
Yeah, man, you're speaking to my heart right now, bro. There's been a lot of things that the Lord has been doing in my life, and He's been pruning me, and there's this moments where I have this moments of resistance, right? And I realize when I do that, I'm just prolonging the process.
Yeah.
Instead of just going through it, taking the bumps, taking the growth pains.
Yeah.
But yeah, man, I love the line that I know the American dream is comfort, but that's not God's heart for us.
It's not.
Man, that is man, write that down. Clip that. Do something with that one, because that's the truth.
Yeah.
God is not calling us to a life of comfort. He's not. So, man, I appreciate you saying that. I really do.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think of our residency, we have a few things we really encourage all residents to take steps in. And one of those actions is to approach hard situations, to approach conflict, to do hard things with the goal of building up resilience. And so for people like me, again, who I'm a stay in the boat kind of guy.
It's your nature, but you
my nature,
worked on
yeah.
it. Yeah.
But yeah, that's the goal. Of I can't just say, well, that's who I am.
Yeah.
No, it's part of what I have to get out of the boat, and it's more of a conscious choice for me than a guy like Hatfield. But still to do that so that I can grow and I can approach hard situations.
That's good. Yep. Second lesson is faith in God is crucial. Faith is more than believing in a theological reality that Jesus came, put on flesh, lived a perfect life, died on a cross, 3 days later rose from the grave. I believe that. Yeah, that's great.
Yep.
James says, hey, I'm glad that you do. The demons believe that.
Yep.
It's more than that.
Yep.
And faith is about putting our trust, all of our weight on him, meaning the weight of our past goes on Jesus. The weight of our future, one day when we die, goes on Jesus. And the weight of our now, our present, which is really hard for us to do. But God's going, hey, I'm enough. And I've proven, and I'll continue to demonstrate that I'm worthy of your trust. Hebrews 11:6 says, and without faith, it's impossible to please God. And the reality is, all we want to do in our lives is please him, to help him know out of our gratitude for who he is and what he's done, that we love him and we trust him. And it says, because anyone who comes to him must believe that he exists and he rewards those who earnestly seek him. We should seek him because life is found in him. And faith is trusting in a God who says, this is who I am and this is what I will do in my life. And we go, even in our questions, we move toward him and go, are you going to be enough? Just like you said in both of your own situations. But I'm gonna keep walking towards you. 2 Corinthians 5:7, it says, for we live by faith, not by sight. If it were that easy, but it's not. Faith is, you know what, I'm going to trust you. I'm going to respond to your promptings to go, to say that, to do that, to start that, to finish that, to fix that, wherever it is. I'm going to do that because you're calling me to. And if you're calling me to it, you have the receipts, which means you're going to give me everything that I need. That's why this is called faith. Yep. Building anything that is going to matter, that's going to last, requires great faith from us, whether it's a marriage, a family, friendships, a company, great church. God calls us to great trust, robust trust in him. It's just like the centurion who said, you don't have to come to my house. You got it from here. I believe that you have it from here. So we trust God. We trust his word, his promptings, his promises.
Yeah, I've been listening to your all's podcast with Kevin and Dusty for my men's group tonight about doubt.
Yeah.
And, doubt is not the opposite of faith. Faith is choosing to keep your eyes on God despite the waves, despite the doubts that are splashing up against you. And so, I think of just that, hey, the waves are going to be there. The wind's going to be there.
Yeah.
Those might look like doubts or those type of things. It's okay to bring those to God. Yeah. Just keep focused on him and remain faithful.
Yeah. That's good. That's good. Number 3, failure's not the end. Peter's a man, as we said, he demonstrated so much boldness in so many different places, but he also made a ton of mistakes. He did. I mean, just look throughout the scriptures. He did, and I won't go through them just for the sake of time. And Jesus knew all of Peter's failures, yet he chooses Peter. Yeah. He does. In fact, one of the first people that he chooses to join his team and say, follow me, he's one of the first. And so the reality is he knew all of that. And for us who sometimes get fixated or consumed with our own personal failures, we think they're final, and they're not. God loves us deeply. He's very aware of our failures, and he looks at us as he does with Peter. He knows all the colossal stuff. And Jesus, after he resurrects from the grave that first Easter Sunday morning, I mean, think about it. Peter's just denied knowing him. He cuts off a dude's ear at one point, just out of reaction to, and like he's constantly failing along the way, as we talked even in the story. He resurrects. He shows himself to the disciples again, and then he commands them with the Great Commission. I want you to go into all the world. I am using you, the 11 of you, to go into the world and bring the most important news on the planet. Make disciples, baptize people in my name, teach them everything I've commanded you. And the book of Acts opens up, and the very first sermon that's preached is Peter. Acts 2:14 through 41. Our failures are not final. Amen. Jesus chose Peter, and 3,000 people were baptized, and the church is born because of what happens, what God does through Peter in his life. And so locker room failure is not the end. All God's got are people who are constantly trying to navigate and sift through personal, relational, marital, parental, spiritual, financial failure. God will use us, and he'll use even our failures to help other people know him. And so there's one more quote from John Ortberg from this book. It says, "Failure is not an event, but rather a judgment about an event. Failure is not something that happened to us or a label we attach to things. It's a way we think about outcomes." Before Jonas Salk, again, we're getting ready to go deep here, developed a vaccine for polio that finally worked. He tried 200 unsuccessful ones, and somebody asked him, "How did it feel to fail 200 times?" He said, "I've never failed 200 times in my life." Salk replied, I was taught not to use the word failure. I just discovered 200 ways how to not vaccinate for polio." Yeah. And then as I was writing this, thinking about this, immediately I always think of Jordan, the GOAT. And there's a poster, man, that is I can see this poster. It says, "I've missed more than 9,000 shots in my career. I've lost 300 games. 26 times I was entrusted to take the game-winning shot and missed. I failed over and over and over again in my life. That's why I succeed."
Yeah.
The enemy wants to remind us of our failures, and Jesus came to meet us in the midst of our biggest failures and to redeem our stories and use our lives, including our failures, to help other people find and follow Jesus. So, number 4, overcoming fear is essential. Fear's not going away, and it's one of the enemy's greatest tools. And so, as you think about this, fear actually is the beginning of some of the greatest moments in our lives, and whether that's jumping off a diving board for the first time, or learning how to ride a bike, or just going, I'm going to try it for this basketball team or whatever. Scared to death. I don't know if I'm going to make it. All those things, you push past that. Asking a girl out. I mean, I remember, man, will you go with me? That's what we used to say back then. Now people would go, what are you talking about? Where? Choosing life after high school. What am I doing? Whether that's a military, college, or a trade. Interviewing for a job, asking your girlfriend's parents for their permission to marry their daughter. I don't have time to talk about how scared I was there. And then the next day, then looking at her and going, "Would you marry me?"
Yeah.
Scary, man. Yeah. You got to take a risk. The decisions to have children, scary, really monumental decision. Saying yes to an invitation to come to church or to come to a group when you've not been a part of church. Getting counseling for your marriage or for an addiction. These things are scary. But looking back, some of the greatest moments in our lives require pushing past fear and stepping out. Fear also can sum up some of the worst moments of our lives, things that we didn't do, wish we would have done, passivity that crept in, got paralyzed by something. But the reality is, overcoming fear in our faith is what drives us, and it deepens our relationship with Jesus. It's the moments of breakthrough that we have in our lives that, man, God's beckoning us forward to get out of the boat. Yeah. Sometimes guys will come to me about a circumstance, things going on in their lives. They're not sure how to interpret it, and they'll go, "Did God cause this or did God allow it?" And sometimes it's easy for me to kind of discern based on the circumstance. Yep. But sometimes I go, I'm not really sure. But whether he caused it or he allowed it, here's what I know. He's sovereign over all of it. And if he's not, then we got no hope. And so, but here's what I hang on to, Romans 8:28. And you've had to do this in work stuff, and you've had to do this with losing babies and plenty of other things in our lives. Romans 8:28. And we know that in all things God works good for those who love him, who've been called according to his purpose. He's going to work good out of it. Yeah. And that's what he does. That's who he is. And so locker room, our aim is to see God glorified in all of it. Maturing is moving to a place where we love Jesus and we trust him in spite of the circumstances, even sometimes in spite of the promptings that he gives us. Sometimes God will change our circumstances, and sometimes God will use our circumstances to change us.
Amen.
And I know we all want option A. just change the circumstance, man.
Yeah.
And God's going, no, no, no. I mean, sometimes he stills that storm, and sometimes he takes it away, and sometimes he goes, hey, this is getting ready to get nasty, and so I need you to grab my hand tighter, and we're going to walk through it. And on the backside of it, there's beauty, and there's growth, and there's fruit, and there's this deep character that's built inside of us, and a deeper relationship with Jesus. And Max Lucado says, fear never wrote a symphony or poem, negotiated a peace treaty, or cured a disease. Fear never pulled a family out of poverty or a country out of bigotry. Fear never saved a marriage or a business. Courage did that. Faith did that. People who refused to consult or cower to their timidities did that. But fear itself, fear herds us into prison and slams the door. Wouldn't it be great to walk out? Fear and doubt are first cousins. The greater the fear, the greater the doubts. The enemy wants us to be mastered by our fears. He wants you to believe your doubts and doubt your beliefs. Yep. We extinguish our fear and doubts by keeping our eyes on Jesus. Hebrews 12:2 says this, fixing our eyes on Jesus, the pioneer and perfecter of our faith, for the joy set before him. He endured the cross. This is our example, scorning its shame, and he sat down after it was all done at the right hand of the throne of God. And I looked up Eugene Peterson, the Message version of this passage. I love this. It says, keep your eyes on Jesus, who both began and finished the race we're in. Study how he did it, because he never lost sight of where he was headed, that exhilarating finish, which means the cross, and with God. He could put up with anything along the way, cross, shame, whatever. And now he's there in the place of honor, right alongside of God. And when you find yourself flagging in your faith, meaning struggling, sinking, go over the story again and again, item by item. That long litany of hostility he plowed through, that will shoot adrenaline into your souls. It's about keeping our eyes on Jesus and abiding in him. We got to remind ourselves of our great leader and king and the mission he went on for us. And that's how we eliminate fear, by keeping our eyes on our leader. The last one is that stepping out in obedience leads to life change and missional impact. Just in case you're still thinking Peter was a failure in the story, he wasn't.
Yeah.
I mean, a couple just things I'm thinking about. Peter stepped out of the boat, and he does that, and there's 11 other dudes in it.
Yep.
Why didn't anyone else go, hey, can I come? Can I join this pool party on top of the water? I mean, why didn't Andrew or Matthew or John? I don't know. So stepping back from the story, who really failed here? It's these 11 guys who stayed in the boat, clinging to the sides, freaking out, watching something miraculous happen from the sidelines. I don't want that, and I don't want that for our listeners either. Man, Peter got out of the boat, and he got to experience something that no one else got to experience, and that's where life and abundance and fruit and missional impact is. And so God's inviting us to a life of obedience that leads to life change and missional impact. You will miss 100% of the shots that you don't take. You will. So you got to push past fear, do it afraid, because God's out there. He's calling us, and if we fail, he's immediately there to pick us up. The biggest command in Scripture is some variance of do not fear, do not be afraid. And we find this over 300 times in the Bible because God's trying to get our attention. Some of our greatest breakthroughs, greatest joys, biggest impactful moments sit on the other side of fear. And so he's calling us to trust him, his promises, his promptings to step out of the boat, to partner with him in the most important areas of our lives. Our marriages, our families, our friendships, the people that we care about depend on that from us. And I'll wrap with this last piece. In 2013, the world was given a song that's been sung who knows how many times, in who knows how many churches and places all over the world. And it was a song written by Hillsong. It's called Oceans. And it's written out of Peter's encounter with Jesus that we just talked about today. It's about trusting the matchless power of God, stepping out into the unknown, the scary, with raw trust, knowing that he's with us and he's called us to. It's a reminder that his grace is there in the deepest waters of our struggles, and he has the power to transform our faith and impact our world. And I'll just share some of the verses, or some of the lyrics. It says, "You call me out upon the waters, the great unknown where my feet may fail. And there I find you in the mystery, and in oceans deep my faith will stand. I will call upon your name and keep my eyes above the waves. When oceans rise, my soul will rest in your embrace, for I am yours and you are mine." And I love this prayer in this song. Spirit, lead me where my trust is without borders. Let me walk upon the waters wherever you would call me. Take me deeper than my feet would ever wander, and my faith will be made stronger in the presence of my Savior. Locker, may we be bold to not just sing that song, to pray that prayer, and to follow him in faith into the deep, dark, hard places of our lives. Anything else you guys want to close with as we wrap up?
I'll go. Yeah. I think of talking about change. The goal is to be transformed.
Yep.
Romans says, do not conform to the pattern of the world, but to be transformed.
Yeah.
And so I love that quote. He either changes the circumstance or changes us. Mm-hmm. The latter is better.
Yeah.
To us to be different.
Yeah, that's right.
And so we want the former, but the latter is better, because our goal is to each and every day, each and every year, to look back and say, I look more like Jesus now than I did yesterday or last. And so we can't do that if we don't come on out. You know, we have to take that risk. We have to step into fear and to take listen to the calling seriously of what Jesus is calling us to. And if we do that, we will be changed, and we can look more like Jesus.
Yeah, man, I would just add to that. I just want to encourage your listeners, man, that fear is a real emotion. Yeah. It's a human emotion. It happens. Yeah. But just embrace it. Embrace it, and then, and just look towards Jesus. You talked about all of Peter's failures and all the things that he had. And one of the greatest things that happened with Peter's failures, they were redeemed.
Yeah.
They were all redeemed. And so whatever mistake you've made up until this point in your life, or whatever it is you feel like you can't forgive yourself for, it's not your job to forgive yourself. You've already been forgiven.
Yeah.
Okay? Jesus has already done that. So walk in that truth, rest in that truth, and just understand that, like, whatever's happening to you at this point, at this junction of your life, God's wanting to take that and use that to make you better.
Yeah, that's awesome. That's awesome. Fellas, I love it, man. We're going to do this again. I enjoyed having you guys on. You guys did such a phenomenal job. Grateful for you both, your friendships, the way that you serve around here. You both have amazing families, and I'm so thankful for God's calling in your life to be a part of this. I love getting to do this with you. So thanks for jumping on today.
Man, thank you. And I just want to say to you, man, I can't tell you how many men I encounter on a daily basis. Now, and I truly mean on a daily basis. Hey, man, I attend Fight Club, and they just talk about all the growth that they've had over that 16 weeks that they're a part of it. And, man, just to get to hear their stories and the stories they share with me, man, I just want to encourage you to tell you, man, hey, man, bro, I appreciate your heart. I appreciate your commitment to this ministry, man, and just keep going, man, because so many men are truly breaking out of, like, these bondages and fears and change, all these things they've been carrying around for years. Yeah. Man, they come out of Fight Club, man, they're ready to go. Yeah, and dude, every time they talk about it, I just smile. So dude, I want to say, man, God bless you, man, for the work that you do.
Buddy.
Absolutely.
I appreciate it, man. Thanks, buddy. Yeah, definitely. Hey, this John Ortberg's book that we mentioned, if you want to walk on water, you've got to get out of the boat. It's been around for a little bit. If you've not read it, it's a great book. It talks way more just about Peter, much more about faith. If you haven't read it, it's a good one to check out. I want to challenge you with a couple questions. Where's God inviting you? This is kind of what Ariea and Ian's been talking about. Where's God inviting you out of the comforts of your boat to move toward Him? What circumstances have gotten in the way that have taken your eyes off of the Lord and His power and His promises and what He wants to do in your life? What's God asking you to do, say, start, build, finish? Some of you have been in the comforts of an aisle on a weekend, and I love it that you're part of our church. But He's going, there's a whole lot more to this. And so take a risk, jump into a group, jump into a ministry team, jump into what these guys are doing, figure out a way to get your life on mission. The reality is nothing that we have or we enjoy today it wasn't handed to us. We had to take a risk. And God and faith is very much so encapsulated in that. We walk by faith, not by sight. So thanks again for jumping on, you guys. Hey, if you're interested in taking a step toward a group, you can jump into a locker room group, you can start a group, you can come down to Danville and jump into Fight Club. You can sign up for our marriage workshop if you are getting married or you've been married 5 years or less. If this podcast has encouraged you, I'd love to hear from you. If you're wrestling with Christianity, would like to know more about what it means to follow Jesus, maybe that's your step, honestly, and you're ready to get baptized or you have questions about that, Or you just need help taking your next step, whatever that is. I need help for this, or I've got some things going on in my marriage, or I'm battling some addiction, whatever that is. Shoot us an email at lockerroomsouthland.church. We'd be happy to help connect you to the right people, the right resources to help you get on your way, because that's super important. And as always, if this podcast has encouraged you, man, share it with a friend. We're trying to help build a culture of strong, godly men. And if there's some people in your life, regardless of whether they go to our church and regardless of whether they know Jesus, this may be a good episode for them to hear. And so I would encourage you to not hold on to it, but to give it away. You never know how it might impact those around you. Thanks for listening. We'll catch you next time on Locker Room.